Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to another Law of One reading stream. I am your host. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. My background music. Turn that down just a bit. Hopefully, today's production values are a little higher. I did a little bit of adjustments, of course, on the on everything. So, if it is good, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. If not, but we are going to get right into reading the Law of One. We left off at part 17, so we're going to go into part 18 today. And so hopefully you notice the difference in quality. I upped my bit rate. I got a hardwire into the internet, so hopefully that will make things a lot smoother, a lot better. And also should increase. I've got my mixer out for my my audio here, so you guys should be enjoying a lot better streaming experience. And if that's not the case, please let me know. I will try and work on what I can to get it finished. But today we are drinking some coffee. This is from Carlsbad Caverns, of course. One of the places oops, I just spilled that everywhere. One of the places I've been, and not a bad, feel like underground caverns. And then I also have the juice of champions, the apple, the juice, the best, the kind that you love to drink, even as an adult. Nothing like a good glass of apple juice. All right. So, with that, let's get right into, switch right over to the reading here and see what we're working with, huh? And transition. There we go. Oh, I see I am a little cut off there. So I will fix that. Just because I readjusted all my, settings. So, let me get me a little more centered. There you go. That's not too bad. Top of my head. Okay. So, we're going to try that and see what we're working with on this. And we're going to go from there. If you guys, again, if you have any questions, anything, let me know. If you can't hear the music, let me know. I'm turning it up on my monitor here. So you should be able to hear it pretty well. If the speaker is peaking, let me know that. And but regardless, let's get right back into it. So last we left off, we were chapter 17, which we talked about Jesus and Jesus of Nazareth, and Ra was telling us who he was and what density being he was, being on Earth. And today we're about to get into session 18. So let's just get right into that. First of all, Joba reacts. Joba. Oh, so Joba, this is a reading stream. I'm gonna do some reading. I do reading of this book here, The Law of One, and it's all about. It's supposed to be about the universe and stuff. So I find like esoteric, like content, like reading, interesting. So this is like universal, kind of stuff. So yeah, it's about spirit and spirituality and the soul and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I'm glad you're here. Glad to have you. Hope your morning's going well and you are enjoying your morning. So, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to answer. So, actually, I'm gonna pop out my chats here. But thank you. Where is my other chats? Where is my other chats? There we go. Right. No, this is not coffee. So I have two. I have coffee here, and then I have juice. This is apple juice. You are correct. So that is two different things. You caught me. You caught me on that one. But yes. So let's see here. Let me get my book out. I got my streams running here and my chats down there. Do you drink coffee, Joba? I like a good coffee. It's, for my Keurig there. But yeah, let's get into it. Here we go. So, Law of One, Book 1, Session 18, February 8th, 1981. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and light of the infinite creator. We communicate now. So this was my Twitter. That's my you can follow me there on Twitter if you want to, I update on when I stream and I post my random thoughts. Like a good cup of Jova. There you go. That's good. It's nice to have a good cup of Joba. I like a good cup of Joba. Keeps you going in the morning, Oh, is it? Okay. Well, thank you for telling me that. I will turn it down. I will turn it down. Tell me, is that better? I don't want it. I've got my mic turned all the way up on my mixer. I've turned the speaker down just a little. That should be better though. I appreciate it. You're my first chatter here, so I'm appreciating that. Thank you so much. Very good. Okay, excellent. All right. So let's get right here. So this is basically if your first time. Now it's too quiet. Okay. Let me try and get right in the middle there. Right about there. How about that? How about that? Let me actually make sure it is all the way up on YouTube. It's kind of in the middle. There. That should be good. I'm seeing it in the middle on my thing now. Okay. Excellent. All right, I will remember that. Actually, I'm going to take a picture of that so I will not mess that up in the future. So I know exactly which one is kind of the best. So I'll keep that and you won't have to adjust it next time. But thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. So basically, yeah, this is someone who's channeled Ra, which is supposed to be the sun god of Egypt. And that's this, it's this guy up here. On my thing. My streaming. So this god, and the music I'm playing is from Age of Mythology, video game. And he is supposedly channeled into a human being and supposedly is talking about how the universe works. So I'm of the mind of like, it's kind of interesting to think about. I'm not sure if I believe in every single thing, which, you have to, use your own kind of judgment and discernment. But I just find it interesting that there's, some kind of talk like this out there. So, but thank you. Yeah, again, if you have any questions, please ask any questions. So let's go to it. So let's see. I greet you in the love and light of the infinite creator. We communicate now. I was thinking last night, if I were in the place of Ra right now, the first distortion of the law of one might cause me to mix some erroneous data with the true information I was transmitting to this group. Do you do this? There's a football player named Amon Ra. Ooh. I did not know that. I did not know that. What team does he play for? Does he play for like the Suns or something? That'd be funny. I don't know what team would be the Suns, but that would be fun. Name means Egyptian sun god. Yes, yes. That is the meaning of Ra, supposedly. So we do not intentionally do this. There will be confusion. It is not our intent in this particular project to create erroneous information, express this confining ambience. And the way he talks is a little hard to understand, but the lions. Sun and the lions. Just like the Lion King and the Rising Sun. That's interesting. I like that. I like that. So the Detroit Lions, right? That's pretty neat. Pretty neat. I find, you know, out of all the, like, there's things like that that are like just coincidences, or I don't know if he changed his name when he got on the team, or if that was his actual name when he started. But things like that like just kind of mesh in reality, I find really interesting. Like he could have chosen to be on the, I don't know, like on the Falcons, right? It could have been somewhere in the Falcons, but no, it like Lions, Pride Rock, you know. So it's interesting. Like those kinds of things happen together, and they all mesh together, and it works. And that's the way I believe on a lot of things. Like things that are meant to happen, and things that, you know, where you gravitate towards where you're kind of accepted or where you're supposed to be. So, full name is Amon-Ra Julian Harrow John St. Brown. Ah, okay. Hold on a second. Actually, I want to look into this. I do want to look into this. But okay. Yeah. Very cool. St. Brown. Nice. Oh, that's sweet. So, pre-draft. Instagram. Okay, 21. Nice. So that was his name in the beginning then. Okay. Later day. Ah. Very cool. Very cool. Oh, I bet they do. You know, when you got a name like that, you're destined for greatness, you know? That's awesome though. That's cool. Thanks for telling me that. Appreciate it. I find things like that to be really interesting. Like, could have just as easily been on, like, I don't know, the 49ers. You gotta have Raw on the 49ers. But no, it was on the Lions. So, that's cool. Okay. So let me read a little bit more here. Will be confusion. It's not our intent particular to project, create erroneous information, but to express in the confining ambience of your language system, infinite mystery of one and creation. Question here that I will read. Much of the mystic tradition of seeking on earth holds the belief that the individual self must be erased or obliterated and the material world ignored for the individual to reach nirvana, as it is called, or enlightenment. What is the proper role of the individual self and its worldly activities to aid in the individual to grow more into the law of one? And then Ra says, the proper role of the entity in this density to experience all things desired, to then analyze, understand, and accept these experiences, distilling from them the love light within them. Nothing shall be overcome, nothing shall be overcome, that which is not needed falls away. That's interesting. He was talking about this last time, like things that you don't need to overcome things, but they just fall away, like they become unnecessary. I don't know if, you know, I think there's a certain amount of self that needs to be involved when you need to overcome things, but that which is not needed falls away. That's That is, yeah. I mean, I think there's just things in your life that just like, you just decide, I don't want that in my life anymore. And so it just doesn't appear in your life. So, that's cool. That's neat. The orientation develops due to analysis of desire. These desires become more and more distorted towards conscious application of love light as the entity furnishes itself with distilled experience. We have found it to be inappropriate in the extreme to encourage the overcoming of any desires. We have found it to be inappropriate to to encourage. Okay, so he's talking more about it now. Here, accept to suggest the imagination rather than carrying out in the physical plane. Desires are constant with the law of one, preserving the distortion of free will. That's interesting. Found to be inappropriate, so not to encourage overcoming. Interesting. Yeah. The reason it's unwise to overcome is that overcoming is an unbalanced action, creating difficulties in balancing. Right. That makes sense to me. Because you're overcompensating by overcoming, right? When you overcome a thing, you're using your willpower to a greater degree to try and get over the thing, rather than just kind of moving on from it, I guess. Interesting. Of course, the reason it is unwise to overcome is that overcoming is an unbalanced action, right? And thus creates an environment for holding on to that which apparently has been overcome. All things are acceptable in the proper time for each entity. And in experiencing, in understanding, in accepting, and then sharing with other selves the appropriate distortions shall be moving away from distortions of one kind to distortion of another, which may be more consonant with the law of one. So this is the overarching theme here, Jova. They're talking about the law of one, and this is like, so apparently this is supposed to be the law of the universe. So how everything behaves and how everything reacts according to this. So it's interesting. It is, shall we say, a shortcut to simply ignore or overcome any desire. It must be understood and accepted. This takes patience and experience, which can be analyzed with self-care, compassion, and compassion for other self. I'm going to highlight that. I think that's interesting. Oops. Oh, I don't know what I did there. I don't know what I did there at all. Well, anyway. So, yeah. So to completely ignore or overcome any particular desire is not helpful, I guess, as this states. But it is somewhat necessary, I guess. Basically, I would say that to infringe upon the free will of another entity would be the basic thing never to do under the law of one. Can you state any other breaking the law of one than this basic rule? I am Ra. As one proceeds from the primal distortion of free will, one proceeds to the understanding of the focal points of basically I would say the infringe upon the law of free will, law of one. Another entity would be the basic thing never to do under the law of one. So any other breaking of the law of one than this basic rule. As one proceeds from the primal distortion of free will, one proceeds to the understanding of the focal points of an intelligent energy which have created the intelligences or the ways of a particular mind-body-spirit complex in its environment. Both what you would call natural and what you would call man-made. Thus, the distortions to be avoided are those which do not take into consideration the distortions of the focus of energy and love light, shall we say, the logos of this particular sphere or density. These include the lack of understanding of the needs of the natural environment, the needs of other selves, mind, body, spirit complexes. There are many due to the various distortions of man-made complexes in which the intelligence and awareness of entities themselves have chosen a way of using energies available. So this is where it gets dense. Like, it's harder to understand exactly what it is that he's saying. But let me go back and try to parse it. So primal distortions, focal points of intelligence. Okay, you would call natural, man-made. Okay, natural and man-made distinctions. Okay, got it. Distortions to be avoided are those which do not take into consideration distortions of the focus. Okay. Thus, the distortions to be avoided are those who do not take into consideration distortions of focus of energy, love, light. So, here, okay. So this is saying if your energy or your focus is not based upon the idea of love and light, then that is to be avoided if you wish to be in the path of service to others, rather than the path of service to self. With every action that you do that is focused on this, love and light, then you are in accordance with the law of one. That's what I'm understanding here. These include the lack of an understanding of needs of the natural environment, the needs of other selves, mind, body, spirit complexes. So, the lack of understanding of the needs of the natural environment. These are due to the many distortions of man-made complexes in which intelligence and awareness of entities themselves have chosen a way using energies available. Thus, what would be an improper distortion which one entity is proper with another? We can suggest an attempt to become aware of the other self as self, and thus do that action which is needed by other self, understanding from the other self's intelligence and awareness. In many cases, this does not involve the breaking of the distortion of free will into a distortion of fragmentation called infringement. However, it is a delicate matter to be of service, and compassion, sensitivity, and an ability to empathize are helpful in avoiding the distortions of man-made intelligence and awareness. So, according to this, it is delicate, obviously, to try and continue on the path of love and light. But it's tough to do this, to stay on this path, but because the distortions of man-made intelligence and awareness are so prevalent. And this goes back to what I was thinking, which is you need a constant awareness. You need a awareness of life, because the default is to fall into this. The default is to fall into the man-made intelligence of perceiving the world and understanding it in a man-made way. All right, finish my coffee. Also had some spam and eggs and tomato and black beans this morning. So that was really good breakfast. I rarely make kind of stuff like that for myself, but it was very good. Good apple juice. Good apple juice. The area or arena called the societal complex is an arena in which there are no particular needs for care for its prerogative, honor, duty of those in the particular planetary sphere to act according to their free will for the attempted aid of the social complex. Thus, you have two simple directives: awareness of the intelligent energy expressed in nature, awareness of the intelligent energy expressed in self to be shared when it seems appropriate by the entity with the social complex. And you have one infinitely subtle and various set of distortions to which you may be aware. That is, distortions with respect to self and other selves, not concerning free will, but concerning harmonious relationships and service to others as other selves would most benefit. So, area, arena, the area or arena, this is an arena in which there are no particular needs for care, for it is the prerogative, honor, duty of those to act according to their free will for the attempted aid. So this talks of honor and duty. That's interesting. So almost like if honor and duty it's a value, and this is again something that I really find interesting, because we have a dignity-based culture, and dignity obviously is inherent within each being for existence, just for existing, right? Like, but to speak of honor and duty, like there is a component of it that is a part of understanding our place in the universe. to act in according to free will is honorable and dutiful if you act with those things. So the two simple directives: awareness of the intelligent energy expressed in nature, awareness of the intelligent energy expressed in self to be shared when it seems appropriate by the entity with the social complex. And you have one infinitely subtle and various set of distortions which you may be aware, that is, distortions with respect to self and other selves, not concerning free will, but concerning harmonious relationships and service to others and as other selves would see fit. So this is interesting. This is a very good summary of, like, so if you want to live in according to the law of one, these are your bread and butter right here. That's what this is. Interesting. Questioner: as an entity in this density grows from childhood, he becomes more aware of his responsibilities. Is there an age below which an entity is not responsible for his actions or responsible for the time of his birth? Becomes conscious of self-bearing. Wait, I think I read this actually last time. Oh, no, I might have read this already. Actually, thinking about it now. But that's okay. That's all right. We'll just go through it again. Retroactive. It's dissolve as the entity learns. The entity 4 years old, totally responsible for any actions. This is correct. Has been arranged by your social complex structures. Oops. Hold on a second. What did I do? Okay, well, we'll worry about that later. This is correct. It may be noted that it may have been arranged your social are to be provided with guides of physical mind-body complex. These guides are parents, teachers, and friends. You stated yesterday that forgiveness is an eradicator of karma. I'm assuming that balanced forgiveness is the full eradication of karma would require forgiveness not only of other selves, but also forgiveness of the self. Am I correct? Can I get the eraser? How do I get the eraser? Just like that. Yeah. I can't. Text only highlight. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, because now I've erased that. Control Z. No, that's not helpful. Okay, well. Anyway. There we go. Erase. See? That's what I want. Thank you. Other selves, but also forgiveness of self. Am I correct? Yeah, you are correct. We will briefly expand upon this understanding in order to clarify. Forgiveness of other self is forgiveness of self. And understanding of this insists upon full forgiveness upon the conscious level of self and other self, for they are one. A full forgiveness is thus impossible without the inclusion of self. Thank you, a most important point. You mentioned that there are a number of confederations. Do all serve the infinite creator in the same way, or specialize in some particular purpose? I am wrong. Oops. All serve the one creator. There is nothing else to serve, for the creator is all that there is. It is impossible not to serve the creator. There are simply various distortions of the service. As in the confederation, which works with your peoples, each confederation is a group of specialized individuals' social memory complexes, each doing which it expresses to bring into manifestation. Can you tell me how Yahweh communicated to Earth's people? I am Ra. This is somewhat a complex question, so let me get this. The first communication, so Yahweh, here we go. The second communication was in the walking among your peoples. To produce further genetic changes in consciousness. This is the third series of dialogues with the chosen channels. What these generic changes were, can you tell me what these were and how they were brought about? Some of the changes were forms similar to what you call the cloning process, the entities incarnated in the image of Yahweh entities. The second was a contact of nature you know as sexual, changing the mind, body, spirit. Specifically what they did, we have answered this question. Please restate for further information. Can you tell me the difference between sexual programming and after? This is the question which you can only answer by stating the intervention by genetic means is the same no matter what the source of the change is. Let me see. I am wrong. The purpose of the 75,000 years ago, as you measure time, was of one purpose only, that to express the mind-body complex, those characteristics which would lead to further and more speedy development of the spiritual complex. How did the characteristics go about leading to more spiritual development? I am Ra. The characteristics which were encouraged included sensitivity of the physical senses to sharpen the experiences, and the strengthening of the mind complex in order to promote the ability to analyze those experiences. When did Yahweh act to perform the genetic changes? I am Ra. The Yahweh group worked with those of the planet you call Mars 75,000 years ago in what you would call the cloning process. There are differences, but they lie in the future of your time-space continuum, and we cannot break the free will of law of confusion. The 2600 approximately time. Sorry, 3600 time. What you call Anak were impregnated with the new genetic coding by your physical complex means so that organisms would be larger and stronger. The ones they want attempting, they want the larger body, strong complexes with great temptation to consider so-called social complex. I don't remember what that is. I think that's supposed to be society. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's supposed to be society. Yeah. So let's see. The Orion group was able to use the distortion of the mind-body complex to inculcate the thoughts of the elite rather than the concentrations upon the learning teaching of oneness. Was Yahweh then of the Confederation? I am wrong. Yahweh was of the Confederation, but was mistaken in its attempt to aid. The Yahweh communications did not help or create what Yahweh wished for them to create. Is this correct? I am wrong. The results of the interaction were quite mixed. Where the entities were of the vibrational sum characteristic which embraced oneness, the manipulations of Yahweh were very useful. Wherein the entities of free will had chosen a less polarity, less polarity for the complex. Where the there it is. Yeah, useful entity free of plus probably oriented core information to the sum total vibratory complex. Those of the Orion group were able to the first time make serious inroads to the consciousness of the planetary complex. Can you specifically tell the most serious of these inroads? Specifically, those who are strong, intelligent, had a temptation to feel different from those who are less intelligent, less strong. This is a distorted perception of oneness with other selves. It allowed the Orion group to form a concept of the Holy War, as you may call it. This is a seriously distorted perception. There were many of these wars of a destructive nature. Thank you very much. As you probably know, I will be working in the next 3 days, so probably have another session tonight if you think it's possible. It's somewhat weak. Will allow. Yes. Food stuff. Okay, yep. 19. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and light of infinite creator. We are concerned in the communication of the evolution of the mind, body, spirit. It seems to be a good place to start would be the transition from the second to third density, then to investigate in detail the evolution of the third density entities of Earth, paying particular attention to the mechanisms which help or hinder that evolution. Do all entities make transition from second to third density, or are there some entities that have never gone through the transition? I am Ra. Your question presumes the space-time continuum understanding. Understanding of the universe or creation as one infinite being. Its heart beating as alive in its own intelligent energy. It merely is one beat of the heart of this intelligence from creation to creation. In this context, each and every entity of consciousness has his will experiencing each and every density. Let's take the point at which an individualized entity of second density is ready for transition to third. Is this the second density being what we would call animal? I am Ra. There are 3 types of second density entities which become, shall we say, inspirited. The first is an animal. This is the most predominant. The second is the vegetable, most especially called a tree. These entities are capable of giving and receiving. Wait a minute. I swear I read this. I think I did. I really need to look at these and make sure I've not read these yet. Okay. So now I'm just repeating everything I already did last time. I think we might have gotten to session 20. Let's see. Positive, negative pole. Yes, okay. I remember the positive and negative poles, reading about that. What else? What else? Instruments well aligned, very conscious. Okay. Second density is able to repeat during the third density portion of its cycle. The second density entities who do not get harvested at the beginning of the 75,000 year period, some are still on this planet. Were any of these the second density entities harvested into the third density within the past 75,000 years? Increasingly true. So more and more second density entities are making it into third density. Can you give me an example of a second density entity coming into the third density in the recent past? Perhaps the most common occurrence of second density graduation during third density cycle is the so-called pet. For the animal which is exposed to the individualizing influences of the bond between animal and third density entity, this individualization causes a sharp rise in the potential of the second density entity, so that upon the cessation of the physical complex, does not return into the undifferentiated consciousness of that species, if you will. So, this is basically saying that animals are part of the whole experience, and that you know, if you don't have that, oh, you know what? Hold on a second. Might not be actively. Let me try and change the bit rate. Let me adjust it down. That might be better. Might be smoother. So let's see. Can you give an yeah? So animals graduate to the third density. So second density. So animals are down below, you know, pets, and of course treatment of them graduates them to third density. If they are well taken care of, or if they have interesting. I don't know how. 6 seconds. Keyframe. 4. Oh, that's not good. Well, to go with it. Figure it out later. It's not working out right now. But can you give me an example of the entity of the third density that was just previously second density? What type of entity? For the beginning of the process, entity is equipped with the lowest, if you will, vibrational distortions, forms of third density consciousness that is equipped with the self-consciousness. This would be a human in our form, then, who would be beginning to the understanding of third density. Is this correct? This is correct. Speaking of the rapid change that occurred in the physical vehicle from second to third density, this occurred, you said, in approximately a generation and a half, body hair was lost and there were structural changes. Aware of the physics of... Okay, I definitely read about this. Dewey B. Larson. Am I reading this? Maybe I got to 21. Alright, if I got to 21, I need to keep where's my Nazca? Okay, yeah, definitely right about Nazca. Alright, let's try 21. Let's see. I don't want to do this again, so I've definitely read this. Yes. Okay. Second 25. Maybe 22. Okay. I think this is new. Average lifespan. No. Lifespan. Approximately 35. Many spent one incarnation. 100 of your years. Is the rest of service? Like service to others. Can I assume the drastic drop in lifespan from 700 to less than 100 in length the second 25,000 was caused by intensification of the lack of service to others? This is part correct. By the end of the second cycle, the law of responsibility had begun to be effectuated by the increasing ability of entities to grasp these lessons, which they are to be learned in this density. Thus, entities had discovered many ways to indicate a bellicose nature, not only as tribes or what you call nations, but in personal relationships, each with the other, the concept of barter having given way to the concept of money. Also, concept of ownership having won ascendancy over the concept of non-ownership on an individual group basis. Each entity was then offered many more subtle ways of demonstrating either service towards others or service to self with the distortion and manipulation of others. As each lesson was understood, those lessons of sharing or of giving, of receiving for free gratitude, each lesson could be rejected in practice. Without demonstrating the fruits of such learning became gradually greatly reduced, for the way of honor duty were not being accepted. So honor and duty are a necessity to accepting and being a part of the universal construct. Okay. Questioner. Would this shortened lifespan help the entity in any way, in that he would have more time in between incarnations to review his mistakes, or would the shortened lifespan hinder him? Both are correct. Huh. The shortening of lifespan is a distortion of the law of one, which suggests that an entity not receive more experience in more intensity than it may bear. This is only in effect upon an individual level and does not hold sway over planetary or social complexes. Thus, the shortened lifespan is due to the necessity for removing an entity from the intensity of experience which ensues when wisdom and love are, having been rejected, reflected back into the consciousness of the Creator, without having been accepted as part of the self, and then causing the entity to have the need for healing for much evaluation of the incarnation. The incorrectness lies in the truth that, given appropriate circumstances, a much longer incarnation of your space-time continuum is very helpful for the continuing this intensive work until conclusions have been reached through the catalytic process. You spoke of the South American group, which was harvestable at the end of the second cycle. How long was their average lifespan at the end of the second cycle? I am wrong. The isolated group had achieved lifespans stretching upwards towards the 900-year lifespan appropriate to this density. I'm assuming the planetary action that we are experiencing now, which seems shortens all lifespans here, was not strong enough then to affect and shorten lifespans. This is correct. It is well to remember that all nexus in this was a great isolation as possible. How many people populated Earth totally at that time? That is, were incarnate in the physical at any one time. I'm assuming you intend recording the number of incarnates at the end of the second major cycle. Approximately 345,000 entities. Approximately how many were harvestable at the total of that? There were approximately 150 entities harvestable. Wow. Then, as the next cycle started, were these entities who stayed to work on the planet? I am wrong. These entities were visited by the Confederation and became desirous of remaining in order to aid the planetary consciousness. This is correct. What type of visit did the Confederation make to this group of 150 entities? I am wrong. A light being appeared bearing that which may be called a shield of light. It spoke of the oneness and infinity of all creation, and of all these things which await those ready for harvest. It describes in golden words the beauties of love as lived. It then allowed a telepathic linkage to progressively show those who were interested in the plight of the third density when seen as a planetary complex. It then left. Did all of those entities then decide to stay and help during the next 25,000 year cycle? This is correct. Hold on a second. I'm gonna go back to start my music over. This is correct. As the group stayed, there were those peripherally associated with this culture which did not stay. However, they were not able to be harvested either, and so Beginning at the very highest, shall we say, sub-octaves of the third density repeated this density. Many of those who have been of the loving nature are not wanderers, but those of this particular origin of second cycle. Are all these entities with us in the cycle? Let's see. Are they entities within the cycle? I don't believe. Peripherally associated with the culture, harvested and beginning at the very highest. Are these entities still with us in the cycle? The entities repeating the third density major cycle have, in a few cases, been able to leave. These entities have chosen to join their brothers and sisters, as you would call these entities. Are any of these entities names that we would know from our historical past? I am raw. There's one with such vibration complex. Saint Augustine is of such nature. The one known as Saint Teresa of such nature. The one known as Saint Francis of Assisi of such nature. These entities, being of monastic background, as you would call it, found incarnation in the same type of ambiance appropriate for further learning. As the cycle terminated 25,000 years ago, what was the reaction of the Confederation to the lack of harvest? I am raw. We became concerned. Was any action taken immediately, or did you wait for a call? The Council of Saturn acted only in allowing the entry into the third density of other mind-body-spirit complexes of third density, not wanderers, but those who sought further third density experience. This was done randomly so that free will would not be violated, for there was not yet a call. Was the next action taken by the Confederation when a call occurred? This is correct. Who or what group produced this call, and what action was taken by the Confederation? I am raw. The calling was that of the Atlanteans. This calling was for what you would call understanding, with the distortion towards helping other selves. The action taken is which you would take part in at this time. The impression of information through channels, as you would call them, was the first calling then at the time before Atlantis became technologically advanced. This is basically correct. Then did the technological advancement of what is it? Technological advancement of there it is. Atlantis come to become because of this call? I'm assuming that the call was answered to bring them the Law of One, and the Law of One as a distortion of the Law of One. But did they also then get technological information that caused them to grow into such a highly advanced technological society? I am raw, not at first. At about the same time as we first appeared in the skies over Egypt, and continuing thereafter, other entities of the Confederation appeared unto Atlanteans, who had reached a level of philosophical understanding. Shall we misuse this word, which was consonant with communication, to encourage and inspire studies in the mastery of unity? However, requests being made for healing and other understanding information was passed having to do with the crystals and the building of pyramids, as well as temples, as you would call them. Let me see here. As you would call them, which were associated with training. Was this training the same sort of initiatory training that was done with the Egyptians? I am raw. The training was different in that the social complex was more, shall we say, sophisticated and less contradictory and barbarous in its ways of thinking. Therefore, the temples were temples of learning rather than the attempt being made to totally separate and put upon a pedestal the healers. Then were there what we call priests trained in these temples? I am raw. You would not call them priests in the sense of celibacy, of obedience, and of poverty. They were priests in the sense of those devoted to learning. The difficulties become apparent as those trained in this learning began to attempt to use crystal powers for those things other than healing, as they were involved not only with learning, but became involved with what you would call the governmental structure. Interesting. Interesting. You know, the Freemasons were very spiritual. The Freemason secret society of Freemasons and Masonic, that type of thing is very spiritual, and certainly they would probably call themselves a priest class of some sort, and yet many of them are involved in government as well. So I wonder if those two things are... Is the desire of being priestly intricately linked with the idea of governance? That's interesting. Because it seems like this is something that repeats in time. This is not something that's exclusive to our incarnation here on Earth as human beings in this time. But the Atlanteans also seem to have had the same thing, where they took the knowledge of healing and they transformed it into governmental practice. Interesting. Was all their information given to them in the same way that we are getting our information now? Through an instrument such as this instrument? I am wrong. There were visitations from time to time, but none of the importance in the, shall we say, historical passage of events in your space-time continuum. Was it necessary for them to have a unified social complex for these visitations to occur? What conditions were necessary for these visitations to occur? The conditions were two. The calling of a group of people whose square overcame the integrated resistance of those unwilling to search or learn. The square. Whose square? Square. I don't get that. I know squares are involved in Masonic practices, but I don't understand that. Maybe that's something to do with that? The integrated resistance of those unwilling to search or learn. Hold on a second. Actually, this is not all the way at the top. I want to go further up. Yeah, right about that. I realize. Let's see. Was it necessary for them to have a unified social complex for these visitations to occur? Larger. That's better. The two conditions, so calling of the square. The second requirement, then relative naivete of those members of the Confederation who felt the direct transfer of information would necessarily be as helpful for Atlanteans as it had been for the Confederation entity. I see then. What you are saying is that these naive Confederation entities had the same thing happen to them in the past, so they were doing the same thing for the Atlantean entities. Is this correct? Okay. Okay. So these things have happened to the people that were helping the Atlanteans, so they did the same thing that was provided to them by another group. Okay. That seems correct to me, if you believe in cycles and cyclic motions. What you are saying is that these naive Confederation entities had the same thing happen to them in the past, so they were doing the same thing for the Atlanteans. This is correct. We remind you that we are one of the naive members of the Confederation, and are still attempting to recoup the damage for which we feel responsibility. It is our duty as well as honor to continue with your peoples. Therefore, until all traces of the distortions of our teach learnings have been embraced by their opposite distortions and balance achieved. I see. Then I will state the picture I have of Atlantis, and you tell me if I am correct. We have a condition where a large enough percentage of people of Atlantis had started at least going in the direction of the Law of One, and living the Law of One, for their call to be heard by the Confederation. This call was heard because using the Law of Squares... Okay, now I have to look up what is the Law of Squares, because I have no idea. What is the law? Tell me about the law of squares. Let's look it up. There's my specific word there. Oh, that's it. Monra St. Brown. Right. Yeah. Cool though. Law of squares. Alright, let's see. Law of squares is a theorem concerning transmission lines. It states that current injected into the line by the step of voltage reaches a maximum at time proportional to the square of the distance down the line. The theorem is due to William Thomson, future Lord Kelvin. The law had some importance in connection with submarine telegraph cables. Ah. Oh, wait, what? How? Uh-huh. Yeah. Really? I didn't know we had undersea telegraph cables in the 1850s. Seriously? We laid cables across the entire ocean? You know how deep the ocean is? I don't understand. Uh-huh. Yeah. Include internet, yeah. 1.4 tons per kilometer. Yeah, okay. Working telegraph 1839. Proclaimed his faith. Insulated with hemp and India rubber. Huh. Interesting. Crimean War. I had no idea we were laying cables that early in the ocean. I thought that was more like a 1940s, maybe, not 1940s, I guess, more like 1970s thing, actually. But I guess we've had these forever, for almost 100 years. This is still not answering my question, though. So transmission, this call was heard because they're over the opposition. No, let me try. I don't think that's correct. This is not philosophical. Let me try law squares. No. Spiritual. Symbolism of a square. What is the spiritual significance? Look around a room. Okay. Predictability, security. The number 4. 4 elements, physical world. Okay. Alright. I guess I'm not entirely 100% on that, but we'll go with it. I am wrong. This is correct, with one exception. It overrode the opposition of the Atlantean entities, which we're not calling. Confederation then used channels such as we use now in communication, and also made contact directly. But this turned out to be a mistake because it was perverted by the entities of Atlantis. This is correct. Ah, okay. There's only one law. Law of one. So all laws are the law of one. Or wait, there is only one law. This is sense. Okay. Sorry. So there's only one law, the law of one. Everything else is a distortion of the law of one. So everything else is a part of it, but not necessarily the same. However, it is well that each so-called law, which we also call way, be understood as a distortion rather than a law. There is no multiplicity to the law of one. This will be the final question in length of this working. Please ask it now. Can you give me the average lifespan of the Atlantean population? I am wrong. The average lifespan, as we have said, is misleading. The Atlanteans were, in the early part of their cultural experience, used to lifespans of 70 to 140 years. This being, of course, approximate, due to the increasing desire for power. The lifetime decreased rapidly in the later stages of civilization, and thus, healing and rejuvenating information was requested. Do you have any brief queries before we close? Is there anything we can do to make the instrument more comfortable? Okay. Instrument as well, less easy to maintain, clear contact, circle working, go forth and enjoy, creator. Okay. You were speaking yesterday of the first contact made by the Confederation, which occurred during our third major cycle. I think we're going to get to the end of this book today. I'm wanting to get to the end of this book. So if you're going to be here with the long haul, we're going to get to the end of this book today. Let me put my other thing down. There we go. I've just had that up the whole time. Sorry. But continuing on. The skies over Egypt, approximately the same time that aid was given to Atlantis. Can you tell me why you went to Egypt and your orientation of attitude and thinking when you first went to Egypt? I am Ra. At the time of which you speak, there were those who chose to worship the hawk-eyed sun god, which you know as a vibrational sound complex, Horus. This vibrational sound complex has taken other vibrational sound complexes. The object of worship being a sun disk represented in some distortion. We were drawn to spend some time, as you would call it, let me sit up for a second, scanning the people for serious interest, amounting to seeking with which we might help without infringement. We found that at that time, the social complex was quite contradictory in its so-called religious beliefs, and therefore there was not an appropriate calling for our vibration. Thus, at that time, which you know of approximately 18,000 of your years in the past, we departed without taking action. You stated yesterday that you appeared in the skies over Egypt. At that time, were the Egyptian entities able to see you in their skies? I am Ra. This is correct. What did they see, and how did this affect their attitudes? I am Ra. They saw what you would speak of as a crystal-powered, bell-shaped craft. This did not affect them due to their firm convictions that many wondrous things occurred as a normal part of a world, as you would call it, in which many deities had powerful control over supernatural events. Did you have a reason for being visible to them rather than being invisible? This is correct. Can you tell me a reason for being visible to them? We allowed visibility because it did not make any difference. Then at this time, you did not contact them. Can you answer the same question that I just asked with respect to your next attempt to contact the Egyptians? I am Ra. The next attempt was prolonged. It occurred over a period of time. The nexus or center of our efforts was a decision upon our parts that there was a sufficient calling to attempt to walk among your people as brothers. We laid the plan before the Council of Saturn, offering ourselves as a service-oriented wanderers of the type which land directly upon the inner planes without incarnative processes. Thus we emerged or materialized in physical chemical complexes representing as closely as possible our natures. This effort being to appear as brothers and spend a limited amount of time as teachers of the Law of One. For there was an ever stronger interest in the sun body. This vibrates in accordance with our particular distortions. We discovered that for each word we could utter, there were 30 impressions we gave by our very being, which confused those entities we had come to serve. After a short period, we removed ourselves from these entities and spent much time attempting to understand how best to serve those to whom we had offered ourselves in love and light. The ones who were in contact with the geographical entity which you know as Atlantis had conceived of the potentials for healing by use of pyramid-shaped entities. So Atlantis had pyramids. Okay. It is in considering this and making adjustments for the difference is in the distortion complexes of two geographical cultures, as you would call them. We went before the council again, offering this plan to the council as an aid to the healing and longevity of those in the area you know as Egypt. In this way, we hope to facilitate the learning process, as well as offer philosophy articulating the Law of One. Again, the council approved. Approximately 11,000 of your years ago, we entered, by thought form. We correct this instrument. By thought. We correct this instrument. Sometimes with low vitality. Approximately 8,500 of your years ago. Having considered these concepts carefully, we returned, never having left in thought, and to the thought form areas of your vibrational planetary complex, and considered for some of your years as you measure time how to appropriately build these structures. The first, the Great Pyramid, was formed approximately 6,000 of your years ago. Then, in sequence after this performing by thought of the building or architecture of the Great Pyramid using the more, shall we say, local or earthly material rather than the thought form material to build other pyramidal structures. This continued for approximately 1,500 of your years. Meanwhile, the information concerning initiation and healing by crystal was being given. The one known as Iknaton was able to perceive this information without significant distortion, and for a time moved, shall we say, heaven and earth in order to invoke the law of one, and to order the priesthood of these structures in accordance with the distortions of initiation and true compassionate healing. This was not to be long-lasting. At the entity's physical dissolution from your third density physical plane, as we have said before, our teachings become quickly perverted. Our structures once again went to the use of the so-called royal, or those with distortions toward power. When you spoke of pyramid healing, I'm assuming that the primary healing was for the mind. Is this correct? I am wrong. This is partially correct. The healing, if it is to be effectuated, must be funneling without significant distortion of the in-streamings, which the spiritual complex into the tree of mind. There are parts of this mind which block energies flowing into the body complex. In each case, in each entity, the blockage may well differ. It is necessary to activate the sense of spiritual channel or shuttle. Then, whether the blockage is from spiritual to mental or from mental to physical, or whether it may simply be random, and purely physical trauma healing that may then be carried out. When you started building the pyramid at Giza using thought, were you at the time in contact with incarnate Egyptians? And did they observe this building? I am Ra. At the time, we were not in close contact with incarnate entities upon your plane. We were responding to the general calling of sufficient energy in the particular location to merit action. We sent thoughts to all who were seeking our information. The appearance of the pyramid was a matter of tremendous surprise. However, it was carefully designed to coincide with the incarnation of one known as a great architect. This entity was later made into a deity, in part due to this occurrence. What name did they give this deity? I am wrong. This deity had the sound vibration of Imhotep. So Imhotep was partially in charge of the pyramids and incarnation, part of the priestly class, I suppose. What can you tell me about the overall success of the pyramid? I understand the pyramids were not successful in producing a rise in consciousness that was hoped for, but there must have been some success that came from them. I am wrong. We ask you to remember that we are brothers and sisters of sorrow. When one has been rescued from sorrow to a vision of the one creator, then there is no concept of failure. Our difficulty lay in the honor responsibility of correcting the distortions of the law of one, which occurred during our attempts to aid these entities. The distortions are seen as responsibilities rather than failures. The few who were inspired to seek our only reason for the attempt. Thus we would perhaps be in a position of paradox, in that we saw an illumination. We were what you call successful, and as others became more sorrowful and confused, we were failures. Though these are your terms, we persist in seeking to serve. Let me actually. Let's start with that. Save. Okay. Let's see here. So, the few, perhaps, a difficulty lay. Okay. So we asked to remember the brothers and sisters of sorrow. When one has been rescued from sorrow to vision. All right, so I'm gonna look up what the brothers and sisters of sorrow is, if that is on the internet somewhere. Let's find out. Paste. Okay, so this is on there. So here I will bring this up. So brothers and sisters of sorrow. This is from their website. So take that with what you will. But from the Ra contact, another more informal term for the confederation of planets in service to the one infinite creator, coming from all reaches of the infinite creation, move towards the calling of sorrow, which they feel and hear as if their own entities were sorrowful. They choose as their service the attempt to heal the sorrow. They are bound together by the desire to serve by reaching their hand, figuratively, to any entities who call for aid. Wanderers are these very same entities in the incarnate state. Okay. So there you go. There you have it. Very nice. We will... Oops. Nope. Wrong one. Sorry. So we have that. There is no concept of failure. Our difficulty lay in the honor and responsibility. Again, the universal, there is an idea that there is a responsibility and there is honor. If this is true, if all these concepts are true, then honor and responsibility are integral to understanding the universe. These are two values of which you cannot be in service to the universe without these two ideas of honor and responsibility. If you are totally of service to self and of like self-benefit, then you don't have any concept of honor because you're not trying to benefit anyone else except yourself. You have no honor. There's no honor in serving yourself because there's no standard to hold yourself to. Honor is a responsibility to the people that surround you. And this is why I think honor is such an important integral concept to understanding life and people and human beings. And the cultures that shun honor are on this path of self-destruction because you don't have societies without an honor system. You have no society. You don't have an in-group. You don't have a people that say we are ready to have the same values. And you don't have responsibility without honor. And you don't have... And these, I repeat myself, but I think it's a very important point that this being, that Ra, if you believe in this, says that there is an honor and responsibility. So that doesn't mean that these values are nebulous and that we just invented them. They are integral to understanding the law of one and the law of understanding human beings and all of us together. And if you don't have that, then you're out of balance. Anyway, continue. Distortions of the law of one, which occurred during our attempts to aid these entities. The distortions are seen as responsibilities rather than failures. The few who were inspired to seek are only reason for the attempt. Thus, we would perhaps be in a position of paradox in that, as one saw an illumination, we were what you call successful, and as others became more sorrowful and confused, we were failures. These are your terms. We persist in seeking to serve. Can you tell me what happened to Akhenaten after his physical death? I am Ra. The entity was then put through a series of healing and review of incarnational experiences, which is appropriate for third density experience. This entity had been somewhat in the distortion of power, ameliorated by the great devotion to the law of one. This entity thus resolved to enter a series of incarnations in which it had no distortions towards power. Can you tell me the average lifespan was the Egyptians at the time of Akhenaten? I am Ra. The average lifespan of these people is approximately 35 of your years. 35 to 50 of your years. There was much what you would call disease of a physical complex nature. Can you tell me the reasons for the disease? I think I already know, but I think it might be good for the book to state at this time. I am Ra. This is, as we have mentioned, not particularly informative with regard to the law of one. However, the land you know as Egypt at that time was highly barbarous in its living conditions, as you would call them. The river which you call Nile was allowed to flood and to recede, thus providing the fertile ground for the breeding of diseases, which may be carried by insects. Also, the preparation of foodstuffs allowed diseases to form. Also, there was difficulty in many cases with sources of water, and water which was taken caused disease due to the organisms therein. I was really questioning about the more basic cause of disease rather than the mechanism of this transmission. I was going back to the root of thought that created possibility of diseases. Like, yeah, I know how diseases form, but could you tell me why? Why was there disease at that time? I was going back to the root of thought that created the possibility of disease. Could you briefly tell me if I am correct in assuming the general reduction of thought over the long time of planet Earth with respect to the law of one created a condition whereby what we call disease could develop? Is this correct? This is correct and perceptive. You as a questioner begin now to penetrate the outer teachings. The root cause in this particular society was not so much a bellicose action, an action of attack, although there were, shall we say, tendencies, but rather the formation of a money system and a very active trading and development of those tendencies towards greed and power. Thus, the enslaving of entities by other entities and the misapprehension of the creator within each entity. I understand. If I am correct, excuse me, that a South American contact was also made. Can you tell me about the nature of your contact with respect to the attitude about that contact, its ramifications, the plan for the contact, and why the people were contacted in South America? I am Ra. This will be the final full question of our session. The entities who walked among you, those in your South American continent, were called by similar desire, upon the part of the entities therein, to learn of the manifestations of the sun. They worship the source of light and life. Thus, these entities were visited by light beings, not unlike ourselves. Instructions were given, and they were more accepted and less distorted than ours. The entities themselves began to construct a series of underground and hidden cities, including pyramid structures. These pyramids were somewhat at a variance from the design that we had promulgated. However, the original ideas were the same, with the addition of a desire or intention of creating places of meditation and rest, a feeling of the presence of one creator. These pyramids then being for all people, not only initiates, but those who be healed, those to be healed. They left this density when it was discovered that their plans were solidly in motion and, in fact, had been recorded. During the next approximately 3,500 years, these plans became, though somewhat distorted, in a state of near completion in many aspects. Therefore, as in the case of breakings of quarantine, the entity who is helping the South American entities along the South American ways, you call in part due to the Amazon River, went before the Council of Saturn to request a second attempt to correct in person the distortions which had occurred in their plans. This having been granted, this entity of social memory complex returned, and the entity chosen as messenger came among the peoples once more to correct the errors. Again, all was recorded, and the entity rejoined its social memory complex and left your skies. As in experience, the teachings were, for the most part, greatly and grossly perverted, to the extent in later times of actual human sacrifice, rather than healing of humans. Thus, the social memory complex is also given the honor duty of remaining until those distortions are worked out of the distortion complexes of your peoples. May we ask if there are any questions of a brief nature before we close? Is there anything we can do to make sure more comfortable? Instruments, alignment. Okay. I don't. Okay. All right. I'm going to get a little bit more apple juice and I think another cup of coffee, and we're going to settle in for the rest. So there's 24. I think there are 26 sessions, so we're pretty close. Pretty close to it, to being at the end here. So we're gonna get to the end of that, and then we might start book 2. We might. So if you guys want to stick around for that, stay tuned. But I'm going to get some more coffee, and I will be right back. So just stay tuned here. Enjoy my wall while I get some more coffee and apple juice. All right, I'm back. More apple juice, more coffee. We are here. We are ready. We are going. So we're gonna finish this book. We're definitely gonna finish this book today. I can feel that. All right. I'm Ra. We are a little concerned about the physical condition of the instrument. She has a slight congestion. If you could tell me the advisability of the session. Her instrument's vital energy field are low. The session will be appropriately shortened. In the last session, you mentioned that this was the last 25,000 year cycle of the Atlanteans, Egyptians, and those of South America were contacted by the Confederation and departed. I understand that the Confederation did not come back for some time. Let's see. What? No idea. Anyway, I understand the Confederation did not come for some time, and can you tell me some of the reasons, consequences, and attitudes with respect to the next contact with those here being on planet Earth? I am Ra. In the case of the Atlanteans, enlargements upon the information resulted in those activities distorted towards bellicosity, which resulted in the final second Atlantean catastrophe, 10,821 of your years in the past, as you measure time. Many were displaced due to the societal actions both upon Atlantis and upon those areas of what you would call North African deserts, to which some Atlanteans had gone after the first conflict. Earth changes continued due to these, what you would call nuclear bombs and other crystal weapons, sinking the last great land masses approximately 9,600 of your years ago. In the Egyptian and South American experiment results, though not as widely devastating, were as far from the original intention of the Confederation. It was clear to not only us, but also to the Council and the Guardians that our methods were not appropriate for this particular sphere. Our attitude thus was one of caution, observation, and continuing attempts to creatively discover methods whereby contact from our entities could be of service with the least distortion and above all with the least probability of becoming perversions or antithesis of our intention in sharing information. Thank you. Then I assume the Confederation stayed away from Earth for a period of time. What condition created the next contact the Confederation made? I am approximately 3,600 of your years in the past. As you measure time, there was an influx of those of the Orion group, as you call them. Due to the increasing negative influences upon thinking and acting distortions, they were able to begin working with those impression from olden times. As you say, was that they were special and different. An entity of the Confederation many thousands of your years in the past, the one you may call Yahweh, had by genetic cloning set up these particular biases among these peoples who had come gradually to dwell in the vicinity of Egypt, as well as in many other places. By dispersion after the downsinking of the landmass Mu, Here, the Orion group found fertile soil in which to plant the seeds of negativity. These seeds, as always, being those of the elite, the different, those who manipulate or enslave others. So here, 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 here. This is good. I mean, this is good to know. Like, if you consider yourself to be of the elite, right? You are seeing yourself as a separate, as an other, as a different than all people that you surround yourself with. And if you see that and you make that your identity, then the seeds of negativity. So the elite, the different, those who manipulate and enslave. So if you see yourself as a better, or you see yourself as a more, or you see yourself as a something like that, then you're not acting in accordance with the law of one. So that's interesting. The one known as Yahweh felt a great responsibility to these entities. However, the Orion group has been able to impress upon the peoples the name of Yahweh as the one responsible for this elitism. Yahweh then was able to take what you would call stock of its vibratory patterns and become an effect more eloquently effective of sound vibration complex. There we go. In this complex, the old Yahweh, now unnamed, but meaning he comes, began to send positively oriented philosophy. This was approximately in your past 3,300 years ago. Of 3,300 years. Thus, the intense portion of what has become known as Armageddon was joined. How did the Orion group get through to the quarantine of 3,600 years ago? The random window effect. Oh, wait, how did it? The random window effect? Okay, question mark. I am wrong. At this time, this was not entirely so, as there was a proper calling for this information. When there is a mixed calling, the window effect is much more put into motion by the ways of densities. The quarantine in this case was, shall we say, not patrolled so closely due to the lack of strong polarity. The windows thus needing to be very weak in order for the penetration. As your harvest approaches, those forces what you would call light work according to their call. The ones of Orion have the working only according to their call. This calling is in actuality not nearly as great. Thus, due to the way of empowering or squares, there is much resistance to penetration. Yet free will must be maintained, and those desiring negatively oriented information, as you would call it, must then be satisfied by those moving through by the window effect. Then Yahweh, questioner, in an attempt to correct what I might call a mistake, I know you don't want to call it that, started 3,300 years ago a positive philosophy. Were the Orion and Yahweh philosophies impressed telepathically, or were there other techniques used? I am wrong. There were two other techniques used. One by the entity no longer called Yahweh still felt it would raise up entities which were superior to the negative forces, and that these entities could spread the law of one. Thus this entity, Yod He Shin Yu Vao He I don't know that one. I'm gonna look this guy up, or person, entity, up, just for fun. Let's see. Where, yeah. Oh wait, is the same name? A different one? Oh, there's a whole Reddit on this. Of course there is. Why would there not be? I'm gonna bring up this Reddit. I didn't even know that. All right, let me get this. There we go. And what? Huh? Oh. All right. Let me. That's a whole nother window. Go. Okay. Where did Yahweh Yodin come from? Did they come from another planet? So Yahweh isn't coming up a lot. So I'm going to chime in and attempt. When we are actually referring to the two different entities. Is stated to be a member of the Confederation, We may not know specifically where they are come from. We do know that this first was a entity of higher density and positive orientation. The second entity of Orion and kind of took on the name as communicated as original. Yes, is totally cosmic identity theft. At this point, the original then went by another name. Yahweh had a different approach to things, the first one. While that approach may have been done some good too, the end result was these methods were used more to benefit the Orion group. So when it comes to this topic, there always seems a bit of confusion. I hope this helps. Some reason, the creation of Enlil and Enki. Huh. Interesting. Well, what has been posted here? Anything? I'm curious now. 3 hours ago. Okay. Great choice. Well, I don't want to read all this. Might be spoilers. But I'm going to, I might post there later. I might look at that, and that'd be interesting. But, continuing on. Let's see here. Came among your people in the form according to incarnate, being mated in the normal reproductive manner of your physical complexes, thus birthing a generation of much larger beings known as Anak. The other method used to generate greater effect in the scenario, as you would call it, was the thought form such as we often use among your people, suggest the mysterious of the sublime. You're familiar with some of these appearances. Could you state some of those? This information which you may discover. However, we will briefly point the way by indicating the so-called wheel within a wheel and the cherubim with sleepless eye. This is information which you may discover. The other method, as you would call it, the thought form, suggests mysterious. Huh. Interesting. Okay. I'm not sure I get that. I'm not sure I understand that either. Did the Orion group use similar methods for this impression 3,600 years ago? The group or empire had an emissary in your skies at that time. Can you describe the emissary? Emissary was of your fiery nature, which was hidden by the nature of the cloud in the day. This was to obliterate the questions of those seeing such a vehicle and to make consonant the entity's concept of what you may call the creator. Then, how was this information passed on to the entities after they saw this fiery cloud? I am Ra. By thought transfer, and by causing a fiery phenomena and other events to appear as being miraculous through the use of thought forms. Then are there any prophets that sprang from this era or soon after it that are recorded? I am Ra. Those of the Empire were not successful in maintaining their presence for long after the approximately 3000 date in your history, and were perforce left with the decision to physically leave the skies. The so-called prophets were often given mixed information, but the worst that the Orion group could do was to cause these prophets to speak of doom, as prophecy in those days was the occupation of those who loved their fellow beings, and wished only to be of service to them and to the Creator. Are you saying that the Orion group was successful in polluting some of the positively oriented prophets' messages with prophecies of doom? I am Ra. This is correct. Your next query shall be the last full query for the session. Orion group was successful. Okay. Tell me why the Orion group had to leave after the figures of to be 600-year period. I am Ra. Although the impression they had given to those who called them was that of entities of the elite group, that which you know as diaspora occurred, causing much dispersion of these people so that they became a humbler, more honorable breed, less bellicose, and more aware of the loving kindness of the one Creator. The creation about them tended toward being somewhat bellicose, somewhat oriented towards the enslavement of others, but they themselves, the target of the Orion group by the means of genetic superiority or weakness, became what you might call underdogs, thereby letting the feelings of gratitude for their neighbors, family, and their one Creator begin to heal the feelings of elitism, which led to the distortions of power over others of bellicosity. But what is he talking about? What are you talking about? Who? Which group? To tell me why the Orion group had to leave. So entities, what you call diaspora. Okay. I'm not sure I get that. But maybe they'll answer in the next session. Okay. So, session 25. Greet you in love and light of the infinite creator. We communicate now. We shall now continue with the material from yesterday. You stated that about 3,000 years ago, the Orion group was left due to diaspora. Was the Confederation then able to make any progress after the Orion group left? I am Ra. For many of your centuries, both the Confederation and the Orion Confederation busied themselves with each other upon planes above your own, shall we say, planes in time-space, whereby machinations were conceived and the armor of light girded. Battles have been and are continuing to be fought upon these levels. Huh. Was the Confederation then able to make any progress after the Orion group left? Both the Confederation and Orion busy themselves with each other upon planes above. So, okay, so they were fighting in a different plane of existence. Okay. Upon the Earth plane, energies had been set in motion, which did not cause a great deal of call. These were isolated instances of callings, one such taking place being approximately 2,600 of your years in the past, which you would call Greece at this time, and the resulting in writings and understandings of some facets of the Law of One. We especially note that one known as Thales, and also one known as Heraclitus, those being of the philosopher career, as you may call it, teaching their students. We also point out the understanding of the one known as Pericles. So, now we have these. We have to look into them because apparently they're big enough to be known by the Law of One. So, let's take a look into their histories. Right? Only appropriate that we do so. Thales of Miletus. Pre-Socratic philosopher from Ionia, one of the seven sages. Okay. Many regard him as the first philosopher in the Greek tradition, breaking from the prior use of mythology to explain the world instead of using natural philosophy. He is otherwise referred to as the first to have engaged in mathematics, science, and deductive reasoning. The first philosophers followed him in explaining all of nature as based on the existence of single, ultimate substance. Thales theorized that the single substance was water. Thales thought the earth floated on water. In mathematics, Thales, the namesake of Thales' theorem, which A, B, and C, diameter, right angle. And the intercept theorem can also be known as Thales' theorem. Thales was said to have calculated the heights of the pyramids and the distance of ships from the shore. In science, Thales was an astronomer who reportedly predicted the weather and a solar eclipse. The discovery of the position of the constellation Ursa Major is also attributed to him, as well as the timings of solstices and equinoxes. He was also an engineer, known for having diverted the Halys River. Huh. Wow. Wow. Okay. So, Thales and his one is known as Heraclitus. Okay, so let's take a look there. Heraclitus. Another one, city of Ephesus, Persian Empire, ancient Roman, Plato, through the works of Plato, Aristotle, Hegel, and Heidegger. Little is known of him. He wrote a single work, only fragments of which have survived, catalogued under philosopher number 22 in the Dies Krantz numbering system. Already in antiquity, his paradoxical philosophy, appreciation for wordplay, and cryptic oracular epigrams earned him the epithets the dark and the obscure. He was considered arrogant and depressed, a misanthrope who was subjected to melancholia. consequently, he became known as the weeping philosopher, in contrast to the ancient philosopher Democritus, who was known for the laughing philosophy. Yeah. The central idea of his philosophy are the unity of opposites and the concept of change. He saw harmony and justice in strife. Huh. He also viewed the world as a constantly in flux, always becoming, but never being. He expressed this in the sayings like everything flows. Pantare. And no man ever steps in the same river twice. The insistence upon change contrasts with that of the ancient philosopher of Parmenides, who believed in the reality of static being. Heraclitus was believed fire was the arch, the fundamental stuff of the world, and choosing the arch, or followed the miscellaneous before him, fails with water, and Anaximander with Apeiron, boundless infinite, and Anaximenes with air. Heraclitus also thought that the logos gave structure to the world. Word gave structure to the world. Huh. Interesting. Heraclitus, the son of okay, lonely Ionian city. All right, so we have a little bit of background on him, and then Pericles. So let's see. I don't know much about him. Actually, I didn't know much about any of these guys, but statesman. Greek politician, Golden Age of Athens, prominent, influential ancient Hellenian politics, Peloponnesian War, Thucydides, contemporary historian, first citizen of Athens, Delian League, right, Confederation of Greek City-States, to the 2 years of Peloponnesian War, the period during which he led Athens as an archon, roughly 461 to 429. Sometimes known as the Age of Pericles, but often thus denoted and include time as early as the Persian Wars, or as late as the following century. Pericles promoted the arts and literature, and was principally thought through his efforts the Athenian Athens acquired the reputation of being educational and cultural center of ancient Greek world. He started an ambitious project that generated most of the surviving structures of the Acropolis. Oh, so he's the one in charge of making sure that lived through. Okay. Exhibited glory, gave work to its people. Athenian democracy, so called him a populist. Pericles descended from his mother, powerful, historical, influential. He, along with several members, succumbed to the plague of Athens in 429. Okay, so, which did not cause a great deal of call. There were isolated instances of calling, the place approximately 2,600 of your years. Okay, so I'm going to read this whole thing again, resulting in the writings and understanding of some facets. Okay, so they're saying that these people that I just went over have some understanding of the law of one, which I can see. I could see that. With the idea of change being and strife being necessary for life. So the idea of populism, the idea of protecting the city, protecting its people, working with its people. This guy is kind of the darker. So you have the politician, you have the dark philosophy, and then you have kind of the light philosophy. So fire and water, right? It's interesting that you have both of those elements. What a guy. Looks pretty intense there. Engaged in mathematics and science. Huh. Okay. All right. I like that. At this time, there was a limited amount of visionary information. Oh, I better close this, sorry. Which the Confederation was allowed to telepathically impress. However, for the most part, during the time, empires died and rose according to attitudes and energies set in motion long ago, not resulting in strong polarization, but rather in the mixture of the positive and warlike or negative, which has been characteristic of this final minor cycle of your beingness. You spoke of an Orion Confederation and a battle being fought between the Confederation and the Orion Confederation. Is it possible to convey any concept of how this battle is thought? I am Ra. Picture, if you will, your mind. Picture it, then, in total unity with all other minds of your society. You are then single-minded, and that which is weak electrical charge in your physical illusion is now an enormously powerful machine, whereby thoughts may be projected as things. Okay? In this endeavor, the Orion group charges or attacks the Confederation armed with light. The result, a standoff, as you would call it, both energies being somewhat depleted by this and needing to regroup. The negative depicted through failure to manipulate, the positive depleted through failure to accept that which is given. That rings true to me. That rings true to me. Like when you're manipulated, when you're put in a position where you don't want to be, there's a dark thoughts. There's dark, like, that just comes over you, which certainly would feel like you're feeding into this other entity, this other being, this other. And when you're not going along with what the universe is giving you, then that's a defeat of the Confederation. So the Orion group, which I don't want to say is the evil group or the bad group, but it's the other side of the coin. So the other side of the coin gets power from manipulation, and the other side of the coin gets power from accepting things and working with them the way that they are, not trying to force the different understandings of the universe. Yeah, I guess I get that. I think I get that. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. Yeah, I can see that. Along with several members from the Plague of Athens, 429. Okay, so which did not cause a great deal of call. There were isolated instances of calling. The place approximately 2,600 of years. Yeah, I was just checking. So I'm gonna read this whole thing and make sure my voice could be heard there. Okay. So, could you amplify the meaning of what you mean by the failure to accept that which is given? Okay, so we get a little more explanation on this. That's good. I am Ra. At the level of time-space at which this takes place in the form of what you may call thought war, the most accepting and loving energy would... Okay, I'm gonna get the highlighter out for this. The most accepting and loving energy would be to so love those who wish to manipulate that those entities were surrounded, engulfed, and transformed by positive energies. The most accepting and loving energy would be to so love those who wish to manipulate. Ah. And where have we seen that in movies before? Where have we seen that in popular culture and cinema and books and understanding and it's a timeless value of which doesn't just spring forth because we came up with it. It comes forth because it's an eternal value of acceptance of people who do bad things, and we accept them the way they are because we still love them. And we still understand that they are a part of us. This, however, being a battle of equals, the Confederation is aware that it cannot, on equal footing, allow itself to be manipulated in order to remain purely positive. Huh. For then, though pure, it would not be of any consequence, having been placed by the so-called powers of darkness under the heel, as you may say. It is thus that those who deal with this thought war must be defensive, rather than accepting, in order to preserve their usefulness in service to others. That's interesting. It's interesting. So you would think, like, you know, at the higher densities, it's like war, manipulation, all that. We don't need to worry about. We can just be loving and accepting. But even still, in a higher density level, you still have to You still have to accept and take in. You have to defend a degree to yourself. So even still, at a higher level of existence in the plane of existence, there is a necessity to defend that which is good and accepting against an evil force, an entity. So, and not evil. I don't want to say that because that's reductionist. Because evil would imply other, right? It would imply it's not a part of us and that we are better than it, that we're overcoming it. And although there are certainly actions that can be reprehensible, we have all committed those actions at some point in our past lives or previous experiences or so on. So still, defense is necessary. Defense is still a necessary value. It's still, you can't just accept everything, right? But maybe it's only for this level of density that's possible, and not for any other one. I don't know. I'm only thinking, kind of. Thinking out loud. So those that deal with this thought war, let's see, must be defensive rather than accepting in order to preserve their usefulness and service to others. Thusly, they cannot accept fully what the Orion Confederation wishes to give, that being enslavement. Thusly, some polarity is lost due to the friction in both sides. If you will, must then regroup. It has not been fruitful for either side. The only consequence which has been helpful is a balancing of the energies available to this planet, so that these energies have less necessity to be balanced in the space-time, thus lessening the chances of planetary annihilation. I'm going to read this whole thing again because I'm a little lost still. The Federation is aware that it cannot, on equal footing, allow itself to be manipulated. So, on an equal playing field, they can, the other side can manipulate this side to become in service to self, to the Orion Group's wishes. So, on an equal footing level, they still have to play defensively. So they can't play by the law of one, which is paradoxical, I can see, but necessary in order to make the third density, which would be in service to self, that makes sense, or service to others. So they have to play this way for the greater people, the more to rise, and for that makes sense. It is thus that those who deal with this thought war must be defensive rather than accepting, in order to preserve their usefulness and service. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. So, you still have to, act defensively in order to be of service to others. Even though that seems paradoxical in that you shouldn't need to do that, right? If you're in service to others, defensiveness, you don't need it. But in this instance, you do, because the manipulation, because equal footing means that they can. That's interesting. It's very interesting. If this is, how the universe actually works. Thusly, they cannot accept fully what the Orion Confederation wishes to give, that being enslavement. Thus, some polarity is lost due to friction, and both sides, if you will, must then regroup. Okay. It has not been fruitful for either side. The only consequence which has been helpful is a balancing of energies available to this planet, so that these energies have less necessity to be balanced in the space-time, thus lessening the chances of planetary annihilation. Does a portion of the Confederation then engage in this thought battle? What percentage engages? I am raw. This is the most difficult work of the Confederation. Only 4 planetary entities at any one time are asked to partake in this conflict. What density are these 4 planetary entities? These entities are the densities of love, numbering 4. Would an entity of this density be more effective for this work than an entity of density 5 or 6? Only 4 planetary entities of love at the 4th density. Density of love is the 4th density. Okay. Will the entity of this density be more effective for this work than an entity of density 5 or 6? The 4th density is the only density besides your own which, lacking the wisdom to refrain from battle, sees the necessity of the battle. Thus, it is necessary that the fourth density social memory complexes be used. Interesting. So there still has to be a battle at a level. So battles are necessary, still have to have wars of a positive influence. You can't just be all accepting, which is what a lot of people that are critical of people that launch wars are. But wars can only be launched if they are just, if they are in balance, again, with the idea of humanity, and therefore the benefit of humanity, not to the detriment of humanity and the service to one particular entity. I understand that. I see that. And that this 5th and 6th density of the Ryan group did not engage in this. I'm wrong. This will be the last full question as energies are low. And that the 5th and 6th densities of the Ryan group did not engage in this. It is partially correct. 5th and 6th density entities positive would not take part in this battle. 5th density negative would not take part in this battle. Thus, the 4th density of both orientations join in this conflict. Can I ask her a few short questions before we close? I will first ask if there's anything we can do to make it comfortable. I would like to know orientation of the 5th density negative for not participating in this battle. I am wrong. The 5th density is the density of light or wisdom. The so-called negative service to self-entity in this density is at a high level of awareness and wisdom and has ceased activity except by thought. The 5th density negative is extraordinarily compacted and separated from all else. Thank you very much. We do not wish to police the instrument. Is there anything we can do to make it more comfortable? Very conscientious as we well to observe the angles taken by the more upright posture. Find some nerve blockage in this portion of the body called the elbows. Okay. 26. Last one of book 1. I am wrong. I greet you in the love and light of the infinite creator. I communicate now. Is any of the changing that we have done going to affect the communication of the instrument in any way? Is what we've set up here all right? I am wrong. This is correct. Do you mean everything is satisfactory for continual communication? We meant that the changes affect this communication. Should we discontinue communication because of these changes, or should we continue? You may do as you wish. However, we would be unable to use this instrument at this space-time nexus without these modifications. Assuming that it is all right to continue, we're down to the last 3,000 years of the present cycle, and I was wondering if the Law of One, in its written or spoken form, has been made available within the last 3,000 years in any complete way, such as we are doing now. Is available in another source. I am wrong. There is no possibility of a complete source of information of the Law of One in this density. However, certain of your writings passed on to you as your so-called holy works have portions of this law. Does the Bible that we know have portions of this law in it? I am wrong. This is correct. Can you tell me if any of the Old Testament has the Law of One? I am wrong. This is correct. Which has more of the Law of One in it? The Old Testament or the New Testament? I am wrong. Withdrawing from each of the collections which you speak, the portions having to do with the Law of the One, the content is approximately equal. However, the so-called Old Testament has a larger amount of negatively influenced material, as you would call it. Can you tell me about what percentage is of Orion influence in both the Old and New Testament? This is good. I am wrong. We prefer that this be left to the discretion of those who seek the Law of One. We are not speaking in order to judge. Such statements would be construed by some of those who may read this material as judgmental. We can only suggest a careful reading inward and inward digestion of the contents. The understandings will become obvious. Furthest be left to the discretion of those who seek the Law of One. Would you all be interested in a Bible reading stream? I might be interested in just reading it, just seeing what we can glean from it. I've not read really the Bible. I've not really read the Quran. I've not read any giant religious texts, but I would like to do that. I think it would be good. Be interesting. Of course, that would be a long one. That'd be a long stream. That'd be a long part. A lot of parts to that one. But it would be good. It would be good. But I'm gonna, have to check obviously video quality and all that, because I really want to get this video quality correct. I want to get this to work nice, and want the voice to be good, and I'll check the stream quality after this, but okay. Understanding will become obvious. Thank you. Have you communicated with any of our population of the third density incarnate state in recent times? I am Ra. Please restate, specifying recent times and the pronoun you. Has Ra communicated with any of our population in the century in the last, say, 80 years? I am Ra. We have not. Has the Law of One been communicated in the last 80 years by any other source to any entity in our population? I am Ra. The ways of the Law of One have seldom been communicated, although there are rare instances in the previous 80 of your years as you measure time. There have been many communications from 4th density due to the drawing toward the harvest to 4th density. These are the ways of universal love and understanding. The other teachings are reserved for those whose depth of understanding, if you will excuse this misnomer, recommend and attract such further communication. Then did the Confederation step up its program of helping planet Earth sometime late in the last major cycle? It seems that they did from the previous data, especially with the Industrial Revolution. Wait. These are the ways that the universal love and understanding. These other teachings. The Confederation set this program of helping the planet Earth. Seems like they did in the Revolution. Can you tell the Industrial Revolution? Can you tell me the attitudes and reasonings behind them? Is there any other reason, any reason other than they just wanted to produce more leisure time in the last, say, 100 years of its cycle? Is this the total reason? I am wrong. This is not the total reason. Approximately 200 of your years in the past, as you measure time. So, this is 1980s, so 1880s and 1780s. Okay? There began to be a significant amount of entities who, by seniority, were incarnated for learned teaching purposes, rather than for the lesser of the learned teachings of those less aware of the process. This was our signal to enable communication to take place. So he's talking, of course, during and close to the time of the American Revolution, the 1780s. Let's check the date. 81. So 1781, Battle of Yorktown would be, that'd be close to the end of the American Revolution there. So, yeah, 200 years ago. Approximately 200. So it could be a little less. It could be a little more. It could be around. But it seems like that would make sense, like it would be in line with the American Revolution, because the whole idea of America, and I stress this again, I believe that America is its whole thing is designed and is in line with, at its core, pursuing the idea of the Law of One, whether in service to self or service to others. That is the pursuit of happiness. That is that idea that Jefferson and Washington and Madison and the founders came up with. It is in service to others. And as they were deists, they understood the natural order and natural law of the universe, and that it is important and plays a role in understanding how to best live your life. So, let's continue. This is good. We're getting into good stuff here. That other stuff like densities and pyramids, I wasn't all that on, but this is good. Seniority, we're incarnating learned teaching purposes rather than for the lesser of the learned teaching of those less aware of the process. This was our signal to enable communication to take place. The wanderers which came among you began to make themselves felt at approximately this time. Firstly, offering ideas or thoughts containing the distortion of free will. This was a prerequisite for further wanderers, which had information of a more specific nature to offer. The thought must precede the action. I was wondering if one Abraham Lincoln could have been a wanderer. This is incorrect. This entity was a normal, shall we say, Earth being, which chose to leave the vehicle and allow an entity to use it on a permanent basis. It's a relatively rare compared to the phenomenon of wanderers. You would do better concerning the incarnations of wanderers, such as the one known as Thomas, the one known as Benjamin. Da-da-da! I just said it. I just said it. Thomas Jefferson, right? Thomas, see? That's exactly right. I knew it. See, this is what I'm, Thomas, Benjamin. I'm talking about American Revolution, the founding. This whole idea of it being integral to understanding the law of one. The whole idea of the United States and its whole conception was about allowing me to be here to speak this to you. Not just me, obviously, but all people. Like, without the United States, I would not be doing this. It wouldn't be possible. It's just, this is what he's talking about. This is why I love American history. This is why I love American history. Because its whole idea is about, are we in service to others? Are we in service to self? Which one are we? Which one do we go for? All and no other country has had such a giant combative idea in its existence. America's the only one that's had this idea of, do we serve ourselves? Are we isolationists? Do we help others? Do we send people around the globe to fight wars? Do we keep them all here? Do we help ourselves? Do we continue to do we close our borders? Do we open our borders? Is that in best service to people? See, this is the thing. And this is why these entities that taken over are in service to self, because we are so trusting and believing of goodness. So this is interesting that they would ask this question. I didn't think Abraham Lincoln would be. I think he's overblown as a president, but he served during a war. Okay, great. He got us through the Civil War, I guess. Sure. So, you know, this, and he didn't really free the slaves either. Of course, the Emancipation Proclamation wasn't for the North; it was only for the South, the Southern states that we were fighting against. So it's like, I don't know if he was in service to others or in service to self. Maybe in service to just preserving the Union. That was his whole idea. It was his whole thing. Nothing else. So I'm gonna read this again. I was wondering if the one Abraham Lincoln could have been a wanderer. This is incorrect. The entity was a normal Earth being, which chose to leave the vehicle and allow an entity to use it on a permanent basis. This is relatively rare compared to the phenomenon of wanderers. You would do better considering the incarnations of wanderers such as the ones known as Thomas, the one known as Benjamin. I'm assuming that you mean Thomas Edison and Benjamin Franklin? I am wrong. This is incorrect. We are intending to convey the sound vibration complex Thomas Jefferson, the other, correct. Thank you. Can you tell me where the entity who used Abraham Lincoln's body, what density he came from, and where? I am wrong. This entity was fourth vibration. I assume positive? That is correct. Was this assassination in any way influenced by Orion or any other negative force? I am wrong. This is correct. Thank you. In the recent past of the last 30 or 40 years, you would do better, considering. So, wanderers, so Thomas Jefferson was a wanderer. Doesn't say Benjamin Franklin, but I would assume the other correct. Okay, so yes, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson being both wanderers. So this plays into my idea. America is this battleground. Is the battleground of the soul. The battleground of the soul is here in the United States. All right, continue. Was this assassination influence? Yes. Thank you. In the recent past, in the last 30 or 40 years, the UFO phenomenon has become known to our population. What was the original reason for the increase in what we call UFO activity in the past 40 years? The information which Confederation sources had offered to your entity, Albert Einstein, became perverted, and the instruments of destruction began to be created, examples being the Manhattan Project and its product. Information offered through Wanderer sound vibration. Nicola also was experimented with for potential destruction. Example, your so-called Philadelphia experiment. Thus, we felt a strong need to involve our thought forms in whatever way we of the Confederation could be of service in order to balance these distortions of information meant to aid your planetary sphere. Then what you did, I am assuming, is to create an air of mystery with the UFO phenomenon, as we call it, and then by telepathy send many messages which could be accepted or rejected under the law of one, so that the population would start thinking seriously about the consequences of what it was doing. Is this correct? Mystery, UFO, telepathy, messages. Partially correct. There are other services we may perform. Firstly, the integration of souls or spirits, if you will, in the event of use of these nuclear devices in your space-time continuum. This the Confederation has already done. I don't fully understand what you mean by that. Could you expand on that a little bit? The use of intelligent energy transforming matter into energy is such of a nature among these weapons. That the transition from space-time third density to time-space third density, or what you may call your heaven, worlds is interrupted in many cases. Therefore, we are offering ourselves as those who continue the integration of soul-spirit complex during transition from space-time to time-space. The use of intelligent energy transforming... Okay, so the weapons of the nuclear wars, nuclear weapons, transform matter into energy. Right. Such a nature among these weapons that the transition from space-time third density to time-space third density, heaven, worlds, is interrupted in many cases. Therefore, we are offering ourselves as those who continue the integration of soul. Could you give an example from Hiroshima or Nagasaki how this is done? I am Ra. So, here we go. Those who were destroyed, not by radiation, but by the trauma of the energy release, found not only the body, mind, spirit complex made unviable, but also a disarrangement of that unique vibratory complex you have called the spirit complex, which we understand as a mind-body-spirit complex, to be completely disarranged without possibility of reintegration. This would be the loss to the creator of part of the creator, and thus we were given permission not to stop the events, but to ensure the survival of the, shall we say, disembodied mind-body-spirit complex. This we did in those events which you mentioned, losing no spirit or portion or holograph or microcosm of the macrocosmic infinite one. So, if this is to be believed, then what they are saying, what the Law of One is saying, is that they intervened not to stop the transfer, to stop the bombing, but they stopped the dissolution of the souls of the people in those events. This would be the loss to the creator on the part of the creator, and thus... Okay. So they would be found not only made unviable... Spirit. So... Oh, okay, which we understand to be... Okay. So nuclear weapons, as we understand them, are not just physical destruction, but also spiritual destruction. If this is to be believed. Which makes somewhat sense there as well. And would be a loss to the Infinite One, the Creator. So, what they did was they intervened not in the destruction of the physical, but they extracted the soul spirit elements of the people there and preserved them, which is good. Yeah, so let's see how vaguely you accomplish this. This is accomplished through our understanding of the dimensional fields of energy. The higher or more dense energy field will control the less dense. then you are saying that, in general, you will allow the population of this planet to have nuclear war and many deaths from that war, but you will be able to create a condition where these deaths will be no more traumatic than entrance to what we call the heaven worlds or the astral world due to death by a bullet or by normal means of dying by old age. Is this correct? This is incorrect. It would be more traumatic. However, the entity would remain an entity. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. I don't think they would go to heaven necessarily, as we understand it, but that means that their spirit doesn't dissolve, which would be a destruction of the infinite one, of the creator, is what this is saying. Can you tell me the condition of the entities who were killed at Nagasaki and Hiroshima at this time? They of this trauma have not yet fully begun the healing process. They are being helped as much as possible. Wow. 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 When the healing process is complete with these entities, will this experience of death due to nuclear bomb cause them to be regressed and climb towards the fourth density? I am raw. Such actions as nuclear destruction affect the entire planet. There are no differences at this level of destruction, and the planet will need to be healed. I was thinking specifically if an entity was in Hiroshima or Nagasaki at the time, and he was reaching harvestability at the end of our cycle, would this death by nuclear bomb create such trauma that he would not be harvestable by the end of the cycle? I am raw. This is incorrect. Once the healing has taken place, the harvest may go forth unimpeded. However, the entire planet will undergo healing for this action, no distinction being made betwixt victim and aggressor, this due to the damage done to the planet. Can you describe the mechanism of the planetary healing? I am raw. Healing is a process of acceptance, forgiveness, and, if possible, restitution. The restitution not being available in time-space, there are many among your peoples now attempting restitution while in the physical. Once the healing is taking place, the harvest may go forth unimpeded. However, the entire planet will undergo healing for this action, no distinction being made between the victim and aggressor. Huh. How do these people attempt this restitution in the physical? These attempts feelings of love towards the planetary sphere and comfort and healing of the scars and imbalances of these actions. I see. So the use of such weapons triggered an imbalance which had to be paid for karmically by the people that exist within this physical plane. I believe that's what that is meaning to say. Then, as the UFO phenomenon was made more obvious to many in the population, many groups of people were reporting contact and telepathic contact with UFO entities, and recorded the results of what they considered telepathic communication. Was the Confederation oriented towards impressing telepathic communication on groups that were interested in UFOs? I am wrong. This is correct. Although, some of our members have removed themselves from the time-space thought, using thought-form projections into your space-time, and have chosen, from time to time, with permission of the Council, to appear in your skies without landing. Then, are all the landings that have occurred, with the exception of the landing that occurred when was contacted of the Orion group, similar groups? Except for isolated instances of those, shall we say, no affiliation, this is correct. It is necessary in each case of these landings for the entities involved to be calling the Orion group. Or do some of these entities come in contact with the Orion group, even though they are not calling that group? I am raw. You must plumb the depths of fourth density negative understanding. This is difficult for you. Once having reached third density space-time continuum through your so-called windows, these crusaders may plunder as they will. The results completely function of the polarity of this, shall we say, witness, subject, victim. Subject or victim. This is due to the sincere belief of fourth density negative that to love self is to love all. Huh. Wow. But I believe this, though. I believe that those who are, like... Yeah, that makes sense, though. Like, you would see your service as, like, I'm helping myself, and I'm helping everyone else. So, in this way, that they would be saying it. To each other's self, which is thus either taught or enslaved. This is due to the sincere belief of the fourth density that to love self is to love all. Each other's self, which is thus either taught or enslaved, thus has a teacher which teaches love of self. Exposed to this teaching, it is intended that there be brought to fruition and harvest fourth density negative or self-serving mind-body-spirit complexes. The following material was added for clarity. So this is much later. Okay, so later. We'll probably get to this at some point. Can you tell me of the various techniques used by the service to others positively oriented Confederation contacts with the people of this planet? The various forms and techniques of making contact? I am Ra. We could. Would you do this, please? I am Ra. The most efficient mode of contact is that which you experience at space-time. The infringement upon free will is greatly undesired. Therefore, those entities which are wanderers upon your plane of illusion will be the only subjects for the thought projections which make up the so-called close encounters and meetings between positively oriented social memory complexes and wanderers. Could you give me an example of one of these meetings between social memory complex and a wanderer as to what the wanderer would experience? I am Ra. One such example of which you are familiar with is that known as Morris. In this case, the previous contact, which other entities in this entity's circle of friends experienced, was negatively oriented. However, you will recall the entity Morris was impervious to this contact and could not see with the physical optical apparatus this contact. However, the inner voice alerted the one known as Morris to go by itself to another place, and there an entity with the thought form, shape, and appearance of the other contact appeared and gazed at this entity, thus awakening in it the desire to seek the truth of this occurrence and the experience of its incarnation in general. The feeling of being awakened or activated is the goal of this type of contact. The duration of imagery used varies depending upon the subconscious expectations of wanderer, which has experienced this opportunity for activation. In a close encounter by the Confederation type of craft, I'm assuming that this close encounter is with a thought form type of craft. Do wanderers within the past few years have a close encounters with landed thought form type craft? I am Ra. This has occurred, although much less common than the Orion type close encounters. We may note that in a universe of unending unity, the concept of a close encounter is humorous. For are not all encounters of nature of self with self? Therefore, how can any encounter be less than very, very close? While talking about this type of encounter, self to self, do any wanderers of positive polarization ever have so-called close encounters? The Orion or negatively oriented polarization? I am Ra. This is correct. Any wanderers? Yes. Why does this occur? When it occurs, it is rare and occurs either due to the Orion entity's lack of perception of depth of positivity to be encountered, or due to the Orion entity's desire to, shall we say, attempt to remove this positivity from this plane of existence. Orion tactics normally are those which choose the simple distortions of mind, which indicate less mental and spiritual complex activity. I have become aware of a large variation in the contact with individuals. Could you give me a general examples of the methods used by the Confederation to awaken or partially awaken the wanderers they contact? The methods used to awaken wanderers are varied. The center for each approach in this entrance into the conscious and subconscious in such a way to avoid causing fear and to maximize the potential for an understandable subjective experience which has meaning for the entity. Many such occur in sleep, others in the midst of many activities during the waking hours. The approach is flexible and does not necessarily include close encounters syndrome, as you are aware. What about physical examination syndrome? How does that relate to the wanderers? Subconscious expectations of entities cause a nature of detailed thought form experience. Thus, if wanderer expects a physical examination, it will perforce be experienced with little distortion towards alarm or discomfort, as it is allowable by the nature of expectations and subconscious distortions of the wanderer. Well, are those who are taken both Confederation and Orion craft then experience a seeming physical examination? Your query indicates incorrect thinking. The Orion group uses physical examination as a means of terrifying the individual and causing it to feel the feelings of an advanced second density being, such as a laboratory animal. The sexual experiences are some of the subtype of this experience. The intent is to demonstrate the control of the Orion entities over the Terran inhabitant. The thought form experiences are subjective and, for the most part, do not occur in this density. Then both Confederation and Orion contacts are being made and close encounters are a dual nature as I understand, they can either be a Confederation or Orion type of contact. Is this correct? I am wrong. This is correct. Although the preponderance of contacts is Orion-oriented. Well, we have a large spectrum of entities on Earth with respect to harvestability, both positively oriented and negatively oriented. Would the Orion group target in on the ends of the spectrum, both positively and negatively oriented, for contact with Earth entities? I am wrong. This query is somewhat difficult to accurately answer. However, we shall attempt to do so. The most typical approach of Orion entities is to choose what you might call the weaker-minded entity. That it might suggest a greater amount of Orion philosophy to be disseminated. Some few Orion entities are called by a more highly polarized negative entities of your space-time nexus. In this case, they share information just as we are doing now. However, this is the risk for the Orion entities due to the frequency with which the harvestable negative planetary entities then attempt to bid and order the Orion contact, just as these entities bid planetary negative contacts. The resulting struggle for mastery, if lost, is damaging to the polarity of the Orion group. Similarly, a mistaken Orion contact with highly polarized positive entities can wreak havoc with Orion troops, unless the Crusaders are able to depolarize the entity mistakenly contacted. This occurrence is almost unheard of, therefore the Orion group prefers to make physical contact. Physical contact only with a weaker-minded entity. Then, in general, we could say that if an individual has a close encounter with a UFO or any other type of experience that seems to be UFO-related, he must look to the heart of the encounter, the effect upon him, to determine whether it was the Orion or Confederation contact. Is this correct? I am wrong. This is correct. If there is fear and doom, the contact was quite likely of a negative nature. If the result is hope, friendly feelings, and the awakening of positive feeling of purposeful service to others, the marks of the Confederation contact are evident. Huh. Okay. Yeah. End of material. Okay. Then I'm assuming that all groups of getting telepathic contact from the Confederation are high priority targets for Orion Crusaders. And I would assume that a large percentage of them are having their messages polluted by the Orion group. Can you tell me what percentage of them had their information polluted by the Orion group, and if any of them were able to remain purely a Confederation channel? I am wrong. To give you this information would be to infringe upon the free will and confusion of some living. We can only ask each group to consider the relative effect of philosophy and your so-called specific information. It is not the specificity of the information which attracts negative influences, is the importance placed upon it. Interesting. This is why we iterate quite often, when asked for specific information, that it pales to insignificance. Just as the grass withers and dies while the love and light of the Infinite One redounds to the very infinite realms of creation forever and ever, creating and creating itself in perpetuity. Why then be concerned with the grass that blooms, withers, and dies in its season, only to grow once again due to the infinite love and light of the one Creator? This is the message we bring. Each entity is only superficially that which blooms and dies. In the deeper sense, there is no end to beingness. As you have stated, it is a straight and narrow path. There are many distractions. We have created an introduction to the Law of One, traveling through and hitting the high points of the 75,000-year cycle. After this introduction, I'd like to get directly to the main work, which is the investigation of evolution. I'm very appreciative and feel a great honor and privilege to be doing this, and I hope we can accomplish this next phase. I am Ra. I leave you, my friends, in the love and light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, then merry and glad, and rejoicing in the power and peace of the one Creator, Adonai. Whew! Wow. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have made it to the end of the chapter of book 1 in total, which has been quite the ride. 233 pages of quite dense material. Of course, that wasn't all 233 pages, but certainly a lot going on there. I'm going to go ahead and pull up book 2, and I think we'll read chapter 1 of book 2. I'm still game for one chapter, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And I will put this over here. So 27, so there's 30 sessions, or wait, 27 to 30, or wait, 50 sessions, sorry. 27, 28, 29, 30, 29, yeah. So 27 to 50. So in total, that's about 22, 23 sessions in this one. So let me move this over. There we go. And I'll zoom in. There we go. So there's only a little bit of forward, so we'll probably read that too. Okay. So we'll do that. We'll do the first session. We'll do our session 27, and let's see how big it is actually. It's only about 4 or 5 pages. That's fine. We can deal with that. That's fine. We can do that. And then we're gonna stop after 27. So we will continue at session 28. And I'll go ahead and highlight that. So we'll know it for next time. Okay, let me highlight, please. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, continuing on. Forward. On January 15th, 1981, our research group started receiving communication from the social memory complex RAW. From this communication precipitated the Law of One and some of the distortions of the Law of One. A page of this book contained an exact transcript edited only to remove some personal material of the communication received in sessions 27 through 50 with RAW. This material presupposes a point of view which we have developed in the course of many years' studies of UFO phenomena. If you are not familiar with our previous work, reading of our book, Secrets of the UFO, might prove helpful. Book 2 of the Law of One built very carefully on concepts received during the first 26 sessions, which were published in Law of One. We encourage you to read the Law of One first, if possible. Both books are available from us by mail. Book 2 concentrates the metaphysical principles which govern our spiritual evolution. I'm going to highlight this, as we seek to understand and use the catalyst of our daily experiences. Now, this will be good stuff. So we've got the background, and we're going to start to get into what actually makes what is the Law of One in our daily lives. So this should be good. A more thorough examination of the energy centers of the body, the connections between mind, body, and spirit is carried out. Building upon information received in the first 26 sessions, we learn more about wanderers, the various densities, healing, and the many energy exchanges and blockages needed to our illusion relating to experience such as sex, illness, and meditation. The first 3 sessions of Book 2 may be difficult and confusing to anyone not familiar with the system of physics authored by Dewey B. Larson. Don't be discouraged. Since Larsonian physics is far from well known, just keep reading, and by session 30, you will be back on firm metaphysical ground. Uh-oh. Well, I was going to kind of read that, but it seems like you kind of want to read them all together because they're all metaphysical. Okay. When you finish Book 2, go back and take another look at the first sessions. They'll seem a lot clearer. For those who may wish to study Larsonian physics, The Structure of the Physical Universe is a good book with which to begin. On page 52, the questioner asks about an equation and does not use the classically correct form in the physics of special relativity. The C term does not appear. Dr. Andrea Purchara received this form of the equation in his communication with the 9, and therefore we felt it appropriate to present it in this form, with the C squared term included precisely as it had been received by Dr. Pohar. The raw contact continued for 106 sessions, which were printed into 4 books in the Law of One series. They are available at your local bookstore, from Winford Press, or from us. If you wish to receive our quarterly newsletter, which you just published, please request that you put on the mailing list. 1982. Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville. All right. We'll just do this first session. If we need to go back and look at it, we will. But I want to do this. just so we have a kind of a basic understanding. So we might do that next time, but let's see here. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and light of the infinite creator. I communicate now. Law of One, Book 2, Session 27, February 21st, 1981. The session I thought we would start Book 2 of the Law of One, which will focus on what we consider to be the only important aspect of our being. This, I assume, will be much more difficult than the task of the first book. We want to focus on things that are not transient, and as a questioner, I may have difficulty at times. When I do have this difficulty, I may fall back on some transient questions simply because I will not be able to formulate what I really need, and I apologize for this. I will try my best to stay on track and eliminate things of no value from the book if they do occur during my questioning. The statement I will make to begin with is, in this density, we tend to focus our minds on some transient condition or activity with little regard to its value or use as an aid or a tool for growth, an understanding of the true and undistorted essence of the creation which we are an integral part. I will attempt by starting at the beginning of creation to establish an overview of ourselves in the creation, thereby arriving at a more informed viewpoint of what we consider to be reality. It is hoped that this will allow us to participate more effectively in the process of evolution. I would like to start with definition of words that we have been using that possibly we have not and possibly cannot understand totally. But since the first words that we use are intelligent infinity, I would like for you to define each of these words and give definition to their combination. I am Ra. Your vibrations of mind-body complex create a query. However, your vibrational sound complex indicate a preference. Please restate. He's like, yeah, you're not getting that one over on me. Please condense your talking there to what you actually want. Would you define the word intelligent in the context of the intelligent infinity? I am Ra. We shall address the entire spectrum of this question before defining as requested. Your language using vibrational sound complexes can be, at best, an approximation of that which is closer to an understanding, if you will, of the nature of conscious thought. Perceptions are not the same as sound vibration complexes, and the attempt to define will therefore be a frustrating one for you, although we are happy to aid you within the limits of your sound vibration complexes. Law of One, Book 2, Session 27. To define intelligent apart from infinity is difficult, for these two vibration complexes equal one concept. It is much like attempting to divide your sound vibration concept faith into two parts. I shall attempt to aid you, however. It is not necessary to divide it. The definition of intelligent infinity is sufficient. Could you define that, please? I am Ra. This is exponentially simpler and less confusing. There is unity. This unity is all there is. This unity has a potential and kinetic. The potential is intelligent infinity. Tapping this potential will yield work. This work has been called by us intelligent energy. The nature of this work is dependent upon the particular distortion of free will, which in turn is the nature of particular intelligent energy of kinetic focus of the potential unity of that which is all. Okay, so this is definitely getting into physics as to how things work, potential and kinetic energies. I would like to expand a little on the concept of work. In Newtonian physics, the concept of work is the product of force and distance. I'm assuming that the work of which you speak is a much broader term, including possibly work in consciousness. Am I correct? I am Ra. As we use this term, it is universal in application. Intelligent infinity has a rhythm or flow of a giant heart beating with the central sun, as you would think or conceive of this. The presence of the flow of inevitable as a tide of beingness without polarity, without finity, the vast and silent all beating outward focusing outward and inward until the focuses are complete. The intelligence of consciousness, or foci, have reached a state where their, shall we say, spiritual nature or mass calls them inward, until all is coalesced. This is the rhythm of reality as you spoke. Then, I think, I have extracted an important point from this, in that in intelligent infinity we have a work without polarity, or a potential difference does not have to exist. Is this correct? I am Ra. There is no difference, potential or kinetic, in unity. The basic rhythms of intelligent infinity are totally without distortion of any kind. The rhythms are clothed in mystery, for they are being itself. From this undistorted unity, however, appears a potential in relation to intelligent energy. In this way, you may observe the term to be somewhat two-sided. One use of the term, that being of the undistorted unity, being without any kinetic or potential side. The other application of this term, which we use undifferentiatedly for lack of other terms, in the sense of the vast potential tapped into by foci or focuses of energy. We call them intelligent energy. I understand that the first distortion of intelligent infinity is the distortion of what we call free will. Can you give me a distortion of this distortion? Distortion. Can you give me a definition of this distortion? I understand, I am wrong. In this distortion, the law of one is recognized that the creator will know itself. Then am I correct in assuming that the creator then grants for this knowing the concept of total freedom of choice in the ways of knowing? Am I correct? I am wrong. This is quite correct. This then being the first distortion of the law of one, which I am assuming is the law of intelligent infinity. All other distortions, which are the total experience of the creation, spring from this. Is this correct? I am wrong. This is both correct and incorrect. In your illusion, all experience springs from the law of free will or the way of confusion. In another sense, we are learning. The experiences are this distortion. I will have to think about that and ask questions on it in the next session. So I will go on now to what you have given me as the second distortion, which is the distortion of love. Is this correct? I am wrong. This is correct. I would like for you to define love in its sense as the second distortion. I am wrong. This must be defined against the background of intelligent infinity or unity or the one creator with the primal distortion of free will. The term love, then, may be seen as the focus, the choice of attack, the type of energy of an extremely, shall we say, high order, which causes intelligent infinite energy to be formed from the potential of intelligent infinity in just such and such a way. This, then, may be seen to be an object rather than an activity by some of your peoples, and the principle of this extremely strong energy focus being worshipped as the creator instead of unity or oneness from which all loves emanate. So the type, this then may object rather than activity. Your people's principle of this extremely strong energy focus worshipped as the creator instead of unity of oneness. All loves emanate. Is there a manifestation of love that we would call vibration? I am wrong. Again, we reach semantic difficulties. The vibration or density of love or understanding is not a term used in the same sense as the second distortion. Love, the distortion, love being the great activator and primal co-creator of various creations, using intelligent infinity. The vibration love being the density in which those who have learned to do an activity called loving without significant distortion then seek the ways of light or wisdom. Thus, in vibratory sense, love comes into light in the sense of the activity. I'm having a feeling we're going to have to read this over because I'm going to miss all this next session. But for those of you here, you get to see it another time, so that's good. Let's see. Love uses light, the vibration of love, loving, without significant distortion, then seek the ways of light or wisdom. Thus, in vibratory sense, love comes into light in the sense of activity of unity in its free will. Love uses light and has the power to direct light in its distortions. Thus, vibratory complexes recapitulate in reverse the creation of in its unity, thus showing the rhythm or flow of the great heartbeat, if you will use this analogy. I will make a statement that I have extracted from the physics of Dewey Larson, which may or may not be close to what we are trying to explain. Larson says that all is motion which we take as vibration, and that vibration is pure vibration and is not physical in any way or in any form or density, and that the first product of that vibration is what we call the photon or particle of light. Excuse me. I am trying to make an analogy between this physical solution and the concept of love and light. Is this close to the concept of love creating light? I am wrong. You are correct. Then I will expand a bit more on this concept. We have the infinite vibration of love, which can occur. I am assuming at varying frequencies. I would assume that it begins at one basic frequency. Does this have any meaning? I am wrong. Each love, as you term the prime movers, come from one frequency, if you wish to use this term. This frequency is unity. We would perhaps liken it rather to a strength than a frequency, the strength being infinite, the finite qualities being chosen by the particular nature of this primal movement. Then this vibration, which is, for lack of better understanding, pure motion. It is pure love. It is nothing that is yet condensed, shall we say, to form any type of density or of illusion. This love then creates by this process a vibration or a photon, as we call it, which is the basic particle of light. This photon then, by added vibrations and rotation, further condenses into particles of the densities we experience. Is this correct? This is correct. I am wrong. This is correct. Then this light which forms the densities has what we call color. This color is divided into 7 categories. Can you tell me there is a explanation for these categories of color? I am wrong. This will be the last complete question of our session, as this instrument is low on vital energy. We'll answer briefly, and then you may question further in subsequent sessions. The nature of vibratory patterns of your universe is dependent upon the configurations placed upon the original material or light by focus or love, using its intelligent energy to create a certain pattern of illusions or densities in order to satisfy its own intelligent estimate of a method of knowing itself. Thus, the colors, as you call them, are as straight or narrow or necessary as is possible to express, given the will of love. There is further information which we shall be happy to share by answering your questions. However, we do not wish to deplete this instrument. Is there a short query necessary before we leave? The only thing I need to know is if there is anything we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to help her this contact. The instrument is slightly uncomfortable. Perhaps a simpler configuration of the body would be appropriate. I am Ra. You are conscientious in your endeavors. We shall be with you. We leave you now in the love and light of the one infinite creator. Rejoice for the power and peace of one infinite creator, Adonai. So let me go just one more time looking here. The nature of vibratory patterns of your universe is dependent upon the configurations placed upon original material or light focused, using your intelligent energy to create densities in order to satisfy its own intelligent estimate, knowing itself. I'm going to definitely have to read this next time because I don't think I've understood it entirely myself. But that's okay. I'm at the end of my coffee. It's my second cup of coffee. About the end of my apple juice. So we're about at a good place to stop. So thank you for those of you who have tuned in and watching me here today. Glad that you're here. I'm glad that you watched along with me and seen me streaming today. I've been trying to, figure this out as far as this goes. But, of course, there is quite a lot of density that goes with this, and trying to understand it and trying to really understand and feel how it goes. So it is tough, but it is not impossible, right? So we are all working through this together, and we will get there, and it will happen. But I know my Twitch wasn't working. It's not been working. I guess probably the bit rate's too high or something. I have to go back and look at my video quality settings because it does not look like it was really the way I was hoping it was going to be. So I'm going to adjust that, and hopefully next time will be better. But let me switch to full screen. So thank you once again for watching with me, The Law of One. I think next time I'll probably going to switch back to Benjamin Franklin, and we'll probably do more Revolutionary War gaming, probably on Thursday. I'm thinking it might be Friday, but usually I get a hankering for streaming again about on Thursday, and I'm like, yeah, I wanna do it. So I do a gorilla stream. I might do a gorilla stream on maybe just a gaming stream. I did some Resident Evil the other nights, so maybe I'll do that again. You know, maybe. I usually do work during the nights, but I'm gonna try and put that in there. And thank you for tuning in and seeing me. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you all being here. And it's just great to share this knowledge and information, and I feel so good when I share it. I feel great when I share this, and people are here and watching it and hopefully understanding, asking questions and being participants. And if you want to know more, I mean, I am happy to answer, obviously, any questions. Leave comments. Please tell me how you feel. Tell me if this is gelling with you, if your being is understanding it, if you're not understanding it. I want to kind of help make my position understood on how I feel about it. So please, don't hesitate, okay? Don't hesitate. Don't be a stranger. We're all together in this big thing called Earth, and we're just trying to make it through. And I want to support you. If you're here, I feel like you're meant to be here. I feel like you're meant to be watching this. I feel like there's a reason that you're here, that you clicked on this, that you saw this link, and that you are looking at this and you're watching it. So I don't think anything's coincidence. I don't believe in that. So I talk a lot, but it comes from the heart. I like sharing knowledge. It's just one of my things. I just enjoy doing it. When I share knowledge with people, when people are hearing what I'm saying, especially when that knowledge is like a universal knowledge. It's not like a local knowledge, like it's something that all people can understand. And I think is just brilliant and just amazing how there's a grand plan and how it all works. So yeah, just want to say thank you again. Please have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of your morning. Hope you had a good cup of coffee. Hope you had some juice or had some food to go along with it. And I will see you next time I stream. Feel free to subscribe if you want to know more and learn more with me and continue this journey of education and learning and process as I go through it with you. And love you, and thank you. Semper Sursum, Excelsior. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
you